Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. This is your host, ID Jester. It's been a while since I posted a video online because I've been out in California on vacation, and now that I'm back, I've been doing some photo editing, and I thought I would introduce to my subscribers some of the wonderful things that you can do to edit your photographs quickly and easily and make them a much better picture. So I'm hoping that this short introduction you can see you can convert your very decent photo into something a little more spectacular, has a little more pizzazz. Here's another shot here that I converted already um, from its base photograph into something a little more uh, interesting with a little bit more color and some darkening shadows. And here's another one that I converted. Another decent photograph, not bad. Something you would get home and see and look at and go, wow, that's pretty good. I like that. But with a few tricks and a few things that you can learn, hopefully in this introductory, you convert something from that into that. And again, oops, and again, come on, mouse. Here's another photograph that I've spent a little bit of time converting over. Again, decent photograph, not shabby, but with a few minutes of effort on your part, you can take this photograph and convert it into this. And last but not least, you can take something such as this, which is an interesting photograph through two planes of glass and out of a airplane and convert it into something that looks just a little bit better. So I'm going to show you what I do to convert some of my photographs from uh, something that's pretty good into something that's just a little bit better. So I've taken some of my photographs from my trip, and I just copied them all into a a couple folders here, and I've just been scanning through them, looking for some of the ones that I might want to look at. And let's take something like this one here, photograph 107. And as you can see, for those of you who are unfamiliar, I am in Bridge, which is a program that links up with Photoshop. And if you have Photoshop, you should, I believe, have Bridge. And Bridges is just a good way to review your photographs, and there's all sorts of different things you can do with Bridge, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But looking through my photos here, you can see that I've got one that I kind of like. This isn't too bad. Let's see if we can spend a few minutes and convert this into something that might be a little bit better. So um, inside of Bridge, all I need to do is double click and it'll bring it up into Photoshop. As you can see, I'm using Photoshop CS3. And here's our photograph, which is not a bad photo. It's got some good qualities to it, but I think we can make it a little bit better. So here's a few of the things that I do to edit them quickly and easily, make them a little bit better. Just come up here into imaging and come down to adjustments. The first thing I like to try is auto levels and see what the computer likes to do. I noticed that when you take a lot of photographs, kind of combines all the colors together and kind of just makes it kind of bland. So if you can see in our bridge program here, if I'm just scrolling through, kind of muddies everything into just a generic kind of nothing spectacular. So I like to have some of my photos that I take turned into something a little bit better. So what I do is go into Photoshop here, and the first thing I'll try to do is try to do the auto levels, and I'll see what it does. And sometimes it'll change the color and the contrast and everything, and sometimes it does it okay, and sometimes it doesn't. If I don't like it, I'll just undo the auto levels, come back in, and I'll do the auto contrast, and I'll do the auto color here. You notice when I did that, hopefully you can see it kind of muddied it into like uh, a green tint to it. So I don't like that, absolutely not. So what I'm going to do here is show you how to get the best color quality. It's quite simple actually. We're just going to go into our levels here, and I'll show you the base um, algorithm here it's using to adjust your photograph. You can of course take your black over here and adjust it. You'll see when I move the black slider, it makes the black blacker and the lights darker. And the opposite effect over here, when I take the lights, you can see it makes everything whitish. But what I like to do really easily is just use these little thumbnails down here, or I guess they're, what do they call these things? Thumb drops. I can't think of the word, but this one here represents the blacks. This one on the right-hand side represents the whites, and this is the grays. So what I like to do is just click on the black, and what you're going to do is just find what should be black in your photograph, or the darkest thing. So we can come up here in the corner and just click. And you'll notice as soon as I do that, it's going to adjust the blackness of the whole photograph based upon where I click. So if I click something that's white, it's going to change it so that it thinks that is actually black. So we don't want to do that. We actually want to do, we can click around, try to find a nice dark black, something that makes it stand out a little bit. Let's just use this one up in the corner. And of course with the white, we want to do the same thing. We want to find the whitest white we can in a photograph. And we're just going to click that. And you notice when I did that, it didn't even change much because it actually sees that that is white. And then the last thing is the most important is the gray point. Gray point is the neutral, which is all your midtones. So, and most of the photograph is going to be midtones, or normally most of the important parts of your photograph is going to be a part of a midtone. So what I'm going to try to do is find a nice gray, something that's not black, it's not white, it's kind of gray. And you can click on, and you can see where I click. If I click this kind of brownish color here back in the sky, it's going to make that the gray tone, and it's going to adjust the color for the rest of the photograph based upon that. And you can just click around trying to find a nice gray. Let's see if we can find one that's not too awful looking. Sometimes it's easier done, and sometimes you actually, oh, that's not too bad. Actually makes the white stands out a little bit better. It's got a nice blackish blue tint to the sky up here. And it's not too bad. Of course, if you don't like what you've done, you can always come over here and hit the auto button, and it'll auto do it for you. And it'll auto do all of the settings. I kind of like that. You see, it's kind of got a brownish tint to it. I kind of like that bluish tint. Let's see where I clicked. I think it was over in there. Yeah, I think that's it. So that's the first thing I like to do is just get my color scheme right. Actually, I'd like a little bit less green in there. It's making it, there we go, a little bit more. Yeah, that's too green. That's a little blue. There we go. There we go. And of course I'll say okay and save it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to adjust the brightness and contrast. A lot of times this needs to be done. Some photographs don't actually need to adjust the brightness and contrast. Obviously for brightness and contrast, it's going to, obviously make it lighter or darker depending on what you're setting, what you think the photograph needs. In this case, I think it's pretty close. Contrast is always important. In most photographs, I think the contrast is like the most important thing. And what we're going to do is actually add just a slight little bit of contrast here. It's going to make things pop out a little bit, make them stand out. It's going to make what the contrast does is actually takes each individual pixel and looks at the pixel next to it and sees if it's lighter or darker, and it adjusts it according to your contrast. So if I crank up the contrast there, it's going to make everything really, really dark next to it, and it's going to make everything really, really light if I do it the other way. So if you want a slightly more contrast, I was going to say contrasty, but I don't think that's such a word. The other thing I would always recommend when you're editing photos is never adjust them very far from the default settings. If you have to adjust them very far, then your photograph wasn't that good to begin with. So I would definitely recommend that you try to stay as neutral as you can, because when you start making changes to your photographs, um, you're going to knock all the color balance out of alignment, and if you're not careful, if you overdo it, and it can make your photographs look kind of fakey. If that's what you're looking for, then that's fine, but most of the time I like to keep it about what it was like when I was there taking the picture. I like realism, but everybody's different. Next thing I like to do is always go to the hue saturation here. And like I say, when you take a digital photograph, for some reason the camera likes to just blend everything together. And I always just about add just a little bit of saturation. What the saturation does is it just makes the colors pop out. You can see when I do it the opposite way, everything kind of muddles together. Kind of everything just gets blended together. And obviously the opposite. Again, this is one of those settings you don't want to overdo or it'll look fake and phony. In this case, even when I bump it up, it looks kind of fake and phony. So I'm actually going to cancel that. I don't think this one needs any saturation. But the other thing I always do in this is look at the lightness here. And you can see, obviously, when I make it lighter, it goes lighter, and darker, it makes it go darker. Since this obviously is a photograph taken at night, we do want it a little bit darker, but we do want our important parts to our photograph to stand out. So I'm actually, now that I've adjusted the lightness, I could probably just a tiny little bit on that. And so we'll be done with that. Okay. And then we can zoom in, zoom out. Obviously, I've got it set up to do that. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Of course, someone's trying to call in the middle of my recording. Anyways, now that we've got that, I've zoomed in a little bit. We can kind of take a look around and see how everything is meshing together. I like how things are coming together so far. You can see that there's a few of these speckly things on the photograph that I don't like, and you can also see, especially when you take night photographs, it turns grainy, almost like a sandpaper texture on the with the pixels. If I zoom in, you can kind of see that because it just doesn't have enough time to process all the light that's coming into the lens. And so we got actually a filter for that in Photoshop, where you can actually, they call that noise. We can actually go in and add noise, reduce noise, whatever, despeckle it, adjust dust and scratches, etc. We're going to reduce noise. In this case, what it's going to do is kind of blend all this stuff, all these pixels, together to make them a little bit less, they stand out a little less. And there's a few things we can adjust in this. Again, you don't want to overdo it because you're going to lose some of the detail. There's some other settings you can get into. Right now I'm not going to get into all the different settings. I'm just going to kind of keep everything in the middle. And I usually use a strength of 3, 4, 5, or 6. In this case, it's not actually too bad, so we're just going to use a setting of 4. We'll say OK, and it'll go through, and you can kind of see it kind of blended some of the pixels. I don't need every pixel blended together, which is fine, because right now, if I zoom back out, you can see looks pretty darn good from my vantage point. Next thing is all these little specks of dust, probably stars up in the sky that almost look like dust. They definitely take away from the photograph. I'm going to show you the easiest and best way to get rid of those. In Photoshop, you can just come over here to how about the clone stamp tool? There we go. If it's not up, you can just right click it and choose the clone stamp tool. What we're basically doing with the clone stamp tool is we're basically using a brush. Right now I got a 19 pixel brush with kind of a soft edge. You always want a soft edge usually when you're doing any kind of editing work. But basically what it does is you're going to copy and paste whatever in that circle. So in this case you can see my circle. I'll move it so you guys can see it. My circle's up here. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to come next to the pixel here and I'm going to hold my Alt key down and it's going to change to like a little target. And that's my target spot. And I'm just going to target that spot right there and just left click. And then as soon as I let go of my Alt key, it'll change back. And then when I left click again, all it's going to do is paste whatever I had there, and it's going to paste it right here. So you always want to choose something that's right next to what you're trying to get rid of. So that way it's the same color, it's the same everything, hopefully. And I'm going to make it quick and easy for you. We'll just go around and we'll get rid of a few of these little pixelated stars out there. Let's zoom out a little bit and see if we, okay, down here in the water we can see, I don't know if that was debris or maybe a reflection or whatever. I don't like it, so I'm just going to zoom in. Again, hold my Alt key down, click, and poof, click, and poof. And there we go. This one here, I don't like that. And I'm going to actually show you this in another photograph again for those of you who are kind of missing what I'm doing. It's kind of hard to see at night, but quickly and easily just Alt key in and out. Alright, so there we go. I think, oh, that's just dust in my monitor. Looking at a spot, but that looks like it's dust. Got a few other minor little things I can take out of the water here. Reflections and stuff that might look a little weird to you. Of course, since I'm left-handed, I always go to the left of where I'm copying and pasting, but if you're right-handed, you can use either side. So for example, if I wanted to do something with this boat, there's kind of a dark spot in that boat. If I didn't like that, I could just come in here and just kind of take that right out like that. There we go. Alright. And you can do as much or as little as you want, whatever your preference is. So right now, this looks to be about done. Let's see if there's anything else you want to do. We can actually go into, just to see if we can make this just a little bit better, we can go into the selective color mechanism here. And this is a really cool tool that you have in Photoshop. Basically it has all your different main colors: red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, magenta, white, neutrals, and blacks. And you can actually individually adjust those. So if I wanted to say take my blues and I wanted to make them more yellow, you can see that when I do that up and down, it's going to make it more yellow. Of course, I don't usually adjust my colors that way. There's other ways to do it, but you can do it that way if you want. Normally what I do is I come in here and I can adjust my blues and I can either make them lighter or darker. You can see when I do that, since this is a very bluish photograph, I can kind of make the blues a little bit darker, which is going to help the nighttime So I'm actually going to leave it about there. Cyans and blues always usually work together in tandem. You can see right in this area where just above the boats in the background there, when I adjust this up and down, you can kind of see where the cyan is. And that's what I like to do, is just crank it all the way up and down, and I can see where I'm editing. Okay? And I can say, all right, this is going to be slightly darker. I want it to be dark because it's at night, obviously. And last but not least, I like to do the whites and neutrals and the blacks in no specific order. So the whites, I can actually turn them all the way down. I can crank them all the way up and make them really bright. Obviously, I kind of actually like the lighter. The boats kind of stick out just a little bit farther the more it goes this way, as opposed to this way. It kind of muddles it again. So we're going to actually put it at about a -10. Looks pretty good. We're going to take our neutrals, which is going to be most of our photograph. You can see when I do the neutrals, we talked about this earlier, the neutrals are going to be your main part of your document. How about your photograph? So in this case, if I wanted to make the photograph just a little bit darker, I'm going to crank it that way. And if I wanted to make it a little bit lighter, the neutrals anyways. And if I turn the neutrals down just a slight little bit, that looks pretty good. And of course, we can go back into our blacks, which is going to be very important for our photograph, since this is a night photograph. We're actually going to, we don't want to make everything too dark. We want things to stand out a little bit, but we want people to know that it was dark when we were out there taking our shot. There we go. So let's zoom way out. Okay, doesn't look too bad. We can zoom in a little bit, take a look. Alright, not too bad. And the last thing I would always recommend you do is absolutely, when you're done editing your document, you always want to save it as a new name. Always keep your original, so you can always go back and edit that original again. If you make changes to it and you don't like the changes, you can always go back to have your original. So what I always do is first edit I make is B, second edit would be C, D, E, F, G, etc., etc. So I know how many edits I've made to that document. And I'll hit the save button. And I always want to make it the maximum size that I can possibly save it. And we'll say, okay. Now if we go back into our bridge program, we should have that picture. Let's see, here it is. Here's the original, 107. Unfortunately for us, we can't get it side by side, but here's our new one, 107B. You can see I've taken kind of the brownish, kind of bland of the actual original picture. I've kind of taken that away and replaced it with a bluish black that kind of affects the night. You can see that everything kind of just sits in a puddle of mud by itself here. Here they kind of stand out. The lights stand out. The whitish or lighter parts of the photograph kind of stand out. And even the poles, you can see it almost makes your eye, drags it in, makes you want to look down the line, just look around the photograph. So this is the original, and this was our new save. And of course, if we don't like this, we can always go back to our original one and start again. So let's, the other thing I wanted to show you, if I just close this out, I was actually working on a picture before I decided to record here. This is the one with the boat. If we go back into our Photoshop here, I think I have this one saved somewhere. Where is it? It is, where is the boat? I'm sure where I moved it to. Sorry. But anyways, for some reason, I don't know what this is, but it looks like a big, almost like a scratch or something that on the camera lens. It's definitely not a scratch because it was, it was just only in this picture. So I don't know if a piece of dust or a piece of hair fell on the lens, or I don't know what it was. But when we were doing some of our clone stamping, I figured I would just show you how to erase this line and make it so that this isn't even visible. Again, I'm just going to click and poof, click, click. And all I'm doing is holding my Alt key down. Every time you see it turn into a target, I'm just holding my Alt key down. And I'm just going to work my way right down that line there. And you're going to see that line hopefully just disappear right in front of your eyes. I've actually had telephone poles disappear in photographs. There's nothing worse than taking a photograph and you and your wife are standing there and you get somebody else to take a photo. And of course they don't know what they're doing. They just put a big telephone pole sticking out of your head. So this is a good way to just go in. You can just remove telephone poles or any signs that you don't like in a photograph. Of course you have to get it all to blend together and work nice. But here we are, we're getting down to the mountain part. This is why you always use the part next to the parts you want to get rid of, if possible. Definitely want to keep that line there. So we don't want to get rid of that. And let's see if we can get rid of that. There we go. And put that there. And maybe a little bit of a touch up here. So zoom in a little bit if we can. You can kind of see that there's just a little part that sticks out there, a little part that sticks out there. And now you don't even see that scratch anymore. So there you go. And of course we have the same thing. I don't know what was going on. I would recommend that for some reason my camera is like the most dirtiest thing on the planet because it's got always seems like it's got junk everywhere on the photographs. Let's see, there was another one way up top here. Oop, keep going up there. And we're just replacing that little part. There we go. And now we got rid of that line, we got rid of that piece over there, we got rid of that piece over there. And we'll save this. Notice it's saved as B because I was editing it. And then if I decide I wanted to make changes to it again, I would just simply go in and bring up this photograph or this version of it and make some changes to it. I know I've got that in there. I'm just surprised that I can't. Maybe it was in GIS 5. Let's see what's in GIS 5. Yeah, okay, that's where it was. So here was the original. Yep, this isn't. I've copied a few of them around, so this is probably a different version. Must be in the original folder that I was working on. I was making some extra folders to show you guys some different things here. So let's see. So there we go. Let's see if we can quickly and easily find one more, make a few changes to it quickly, and see if we can. Kind of like this shot here. I always recommend for those of you that are out taking pictures, take tons and tons of pictures so you can get one that turns out right. That's all you need is one. You can see that this shot are almost exactly alike, but the camera decided to keep the aperture open a little bit more during this shot. You can see it's a lot lighter than this shot. So every picture is always going to be slightly different. Let's take this one and see. It'll be on the left hand side. This way when we edit it, it'll be 172 and 172B, so we can see them side by side and make it a little easier. Alright, so again, back into adjustments. Let's try auto levels and see what happens. It didn't do nothing. So now we're going to go into our levels by ourselves. We're going to find our black. Black is black. Probably down here. Our white is white. Well, we know where that is. And now a nice gray. Oh, that's already a big change. You see it made the water a nice grayish blue shade just by doing that. I love that. Let's see if we can see what we do when we make our grays here. These are our midtones. Remember we talked about our lights and our darks and our midtones. You can see how important these midtones are. I almost like how when I make it darker, it almost makes it like narrow in. Because all this area is black, all this area is black, this is black, and this is black. The darker I make it, the more focused it is on over towards the middle here. Kind of actually a little bit too much, maybe. Alright. That's pretty good. Alright, then we're going to go into our brightness and contrast. Let's look at our... doesn't need much of that. Of course, the lighter you make, the brighter you make it, the more your whites flash out. In this case, I don't really want the moon to flash out too much, so let's just leave it there. Let's try our contrast here. So we go from really light to really dark, and kind of actually like it a little darker because it makes the light stand out a little bit. Let's try that. All right, and we're going to go into our hue saturation. What do we do with our saturation? We're going to make these colors pop out a little bit. And again, we can get some lightness and darkness in there. We don't like any of that, so we're going to keep that. Alright. And we can go into our selective colors. Come down to our blacks here first. See what I was talking about? See, the blacker I make it, the more focused it comes down in there. Actually, I don't like any of that, so cancel. Start again. Oop, that's not what I wanted. Try this one more time. Selective color. Let's look at our neutrals again. This neutrals are going to be big in this photograph because they're all neutrals. I'm trying to get them to stand out just slightly more. Not too bad, not too bad. Let's look at our whites. And the only whites are up there at the up in this area. Looks like that's about the only thing that's changing. So it just depends on what we like for our, almost like that because it's like a ring around the moon with a nice like a shadowy effect around the moon, but this just makes it the whole area like a it's a I don't know. I think I will just keep that the same, maybe slightly up. There we go. Let's see, what else do we need to do? That looks pretty good. Let's go to our noise. Before I go to my noise this time I'm going to zoom way in. You can see what I'm talking about, how it makes it like a spotted pattern with the noise. And hopefully after we get this noise reduction, some of that will go away. This time I'm actually going to crank it up to about 5. And say okay, see how it does. Let's let me check one more thing here. Noise, and we are gonna remove that and see how it affects her. Okay. Well, let's just compare and see what we think. Save as. We're always going to save it as a backup copy. I'm going to hit save and keep it the maximum we can keep it. Let's take a look and see what we think. Alright, so here was the original. Not a bad photograph just to start with. But you can see it's kind of kind of the sky's all grayish, muddied, and almost like just blended all together. The water is kind of the same way. It's kind of just all gray and muddled together. Nothing really stands out. And if you look at our photograph, you can see some clouds, some mountains in the background, some clouds going over the mountains. You can see how the dark sky kind of uh, blends over towards the moon. You can see the water actually is a clearish crystalline like water, and I think this is much better than this one. Even though this is a good picture to start with, we've increased it just slightly um, for to make it a little bit better and see how we can make changes quickly and easily. I mean, that only took us about 5 minutes, and you can see there's not much difference. A little bit. Some of them, when you start getting into some of the ones that are really go to just 5, you can see sometimes you can make a dramatic change. You can see that these two pictures are dramatically changed. These two are very similar, but you can see that the clouds are kind of blended into the sky, and here you can see more of a cloud structure. You can see the water here is just a bland old blue. Here you got a nice blue here. Things kind of stand out a little bit better. Same thing with this photograph. You can see it's just blended all the blues together, and here it kind of had more of a magenta-ish blue color. Here it's just all blue, just different shades of blue. Here you actually have some green flowing into the blue colors. You see the yellow of the boat sticks out, makes the photograph much more interesting. And of course, you get something like this where this is all just blended together. And if you use some of the processes I showed you, you can get them to you can actually see some of the stuff that you took the picture of, and you go, wow, it didn't look anything like what I remember. And then you quickly and easily can make some changes and edit it so that it does look like what you remember. So, again, thank you all for joining me. I hope you learned something in this video. It's not too hard if you got the proper tools. You spend a few minutes. The first thing I would recommend you always do is get all your photographs copied and backed up before you make any changes to anything. Um, so either burn all your photographs onto a disk or copy them onto a spare computer, whatever you normally do. And that way you always have your backup copy in case you need to go back to them. And then once you do, make some changes to your photographs. You can save them as a new name, so that way when you're done with them, you can always go back to the original, and you'll have those around. So we'll get rid of that, like this. There we go. Make some changes, so I'll save it again, and I'll be done. Please do subscribe, leave comments, let me know if you like this video. If you like this video, I'll show you how to edit some more photographs. And if you're interested, give it a big thumbs up, leave some comments, and let your friends know that I'm around and always posting videos if you're interested. So, did we look at I forgot, did we look at the difference between these two? I think we did. Yes, actually we did. Okay, we talked about it. So there we go. Thank you all for joining me. And until next time, this is ID Jester signing off.